The chosen ones. The greatest trick the adversary ever did was convincing you that you were helpless. Let us get one thing straight. What happened to you was not accidental. It wasn't just poor luck, random hatred, or a miscommunication. No, it was premeditated, purposeful, and utterly repulsive. The worst thing was that they assumed you would not notice. This is a fact. Throughout history, the most powerful individuals, visionaries, truth seekers, and game changers have always faced the most threats. Why? Because an awakened person poses the greatest threat to a corrupt society. And you, my buddy, were never intended to be sleeping. They came for you. They sought to break you and expected you to remain down. But something tells me you're going to show them completely incorrect. Now let's speak about what they did and why the world is finally upset about it. Number 1, the designation of chosen one is a trap rather than an honor. They told you that you were unique, unusual, and had something no one else did. And at first, it seemed like an honor. It seemed like you had been picked for something big, as if you had a greater mission than yourself. But they didn't tell you that being selected came at a cost. And that cost you. The term wasn't intended to pull you up. It was about setting you up from the minute they mocked you for being different. They were already making plans to steal from you, to control you, and to ensure that whatever light you had would shine, but not for your own good. They didn't want you to win. They only wanted you to continue playing their game. The worst aspect was that they made you blame yourself when things went wrong. They flooded your brain with thoughts such, perhaps I'm not good enough. Maybe I should try harder. Maybe it's only me. But it was never only you. That's how they designed it. They offered you just enough hope to keep you after something, but not enough to really achieve it. Because as long as you felt you were unique, you would keep proving it. You'd keep working and sacrificing. Keep pushing yourself until you're exhausted, while others sit back and reap their benefits. And when you started to question things, they branded you ungrateful, unpleasant, and bothersome because they didn't want you to wake up. But here is the reality. You were not chosen for greatness. You were targeted for exploitation. And the second you understand this, you break the pattern. The moment you stop playing their game, the entire illusion crumbles. They didn't expect you to see through it. They never expected you to reclaim your authority. But now you do. And this alters everything. Number 2, you were never picked for greatness. You were picked for the sacrifice. They said you were destined for something spectacular, that you had a larger mission than yourself. For a while, you believed them. You believed being selected meant you were supposed to lead, inspire, and climb above. But what they truly meant was something far more evil. You were not chosen for greatness. You were picked for usage. They wanted someone who was strong enough to handle the weight while being obedient enough to never wonder why. Someone who could take the strikes, absorb the agony, and kept going. Because that is what the chosen ones do, correct? They endure for the greater good. They sacrifice their pleasure, time, and dreams, all for the service of something larger. But here's the unpleasant truth. They'll never confess that your sacrifice benefited solely them. They led you to feel that battle was part of your destiny, that the challenges, betrayals, and defeats were only tests to help you become stronger. But these were not tests. They were traps set to keep you giving, serving, and tearing yourself apart while they watched from a safe distance. They applauded you when you were in suffering, but remained mute when you needed assistance. They labeled you strong only when your pain made their lives easier. And the moment you began to draw away, the matter of demanding more for yourself, they turned on you. Suddenly, you were no longer the chosen one. You were selfish, ungrateful, and a problem because you were never meant to succeed. You were intended to stay put, keep serving, and never recognize your worth. But you now recognize it for what it is. They didn't choose you because they recognized your greatness. They chose you because they believed you would not fight back, because they imagined you wouldn't stop bleeding, For those who refused to offer you a bandage, they were wrong. And now they are afraid because the chosen one waking up is their greatest fear. Number 3, the attacks were never random. They were strategic. They made it appear as if everything that occurred to you was random. The betrayals, losses, and continuous barriers were just poor luck. However, nothing about it was random. It was purposeful. The attacks were not just brutal. They were strategic. Every strike was strategically positioned to inflict the greatest pain. They didn't just want to break you. They wanted to ensure that you never got back up. That is why they did not target your strengths. They assaulted your confidence. They didn't target what you could rebuild. They went after what would cause you to doubt yourself. They spent their time eating away at you, making you doubt your own talents, value, and sanity. They isolated you not by force, but via manipulation. They used distorted stories and subtle murmurs to turn people against you, rather than telling the truth. They made certain that when you reached your lowest point, you had no one else to turn to, because the chosen one without support is easier to manage. And how they did it? They made sure you didn't see it coming. They didn't assault you directly. They grinned in your face while sowing seeds of doubt behind your back. They claimed to encourage you while covertly ensuring you never went ahead. When you finally grasped what was going on, they branded you neurotic, overreacting, and difficult. But here's something they didn't expect: you waking up. Because once you recognize the game for what it is, you stop following its rules. You cease explaining yourself. You cease wanting their approval. And this is when the entire system begins to crumble. They never feared your might. They dreaded the day you realized you had it. And that day has arrived. Before, you were programmed to mistrust yourself, so they would maintain control. They did not need to physically stop you. They didn't need to modify barriers or use direct force. All they had to do was plant the seed of doubt in your mind, and you'd perform the work for them. This is how they kept you in place. Manipulation rather than power. From the start, they made you doubt yourself. When you spoke up, they assumed you were being theatrical. When you had a decent concept, they made you feel like it wasn't very impressive. When you saw through their falsehoods, they told you that you were thinking too much. They gradually conditioned you to think that your own instincts were untrustworthy, that your impulses were incorrect, and that you need their approval before acting. That was the actual trap. And once they got you in that mindset, they didn't have to do anything. You stopped taking chances not because you were incapable, but because you didn't know if you were correct. You delayed before making judgments, waiting for others to approve them first. You remained silent in rooms where you should have spoken out. That's precisely what they wanted. Because as long as you questioned yourself, they had no need to be concerned about you rising above them. The craziest part, they did not even believe what they told you. They knew you were strong, clever, and competent. That's why they tried so hard to break you down in the first place. Because uncertainty equals control. If they could keep you caught in your own brain, doubting every action, they wouldn't have to do anything to stop you. You would stop yourself. But the minute you know this, when you finally grasp that every doubt in your thoughts was purposefully put, you regain control. Because the fact is that you were never incapable. You were never wanting. You were never an issue. They only needed you to believe you were. And suddenly, that belief is gone. And so is their authority over you. Number 5, the world is not against you. It is only those who fear you. It seems like the entire world has been against you for as long as you can remember. Like, no matter what you do or how noble your intentions are, someone will always try to block, undermine, or attack you. For a long time, you may have felt it was your lot to suffer while everyone else seemed to progress forward. But here is the reality. It's not the entire planet. It's only a few. Those who are afraid of what you can do. They recognized your potential before you did. They appreciated your power, intelligence, and resilience. They felt threatened rather than inspired by it. Because fearful people dislike competition. They demand control. And if someone like you climbs too far, their entire system collapses. So what are they doing? They make it seem as if the entire world is against you. They isolate you, disseminate lies about you, and keep you continually engaged in fights that deplete your vitality. They surround you with negativity, leading you to believe that everyone else views you the same way they do. However, this is not reality. It's an illusion. The fact is that for every person who fears you, there are 10 who adore you. For every adversary working against you, many people would support you if you quit lurking in the shadows. They push you to give a justification. It feels like the entire world is against you because they make it a point to place their voices ahead of everyone else's. They ensured that the assaults were louder than the support. However, if you walk outside of their influence, you will see it plainly. You were never an issue. You were a threat. Now that you know, the game changes. You don't need to battle the entire globe. Only the ones that are afraid of you waking up. Number 6. Your failures were never a failure. They were disguised assaults. How many times have you thought, if only that opportunity had worked out? I wish that individual had not deceived me. I wish things had gone differently. You were persuaded to believe that your losses were simply bad luck, that you weren't working hard enough, or that you were not intended to succeed. What if such failures were not failures after all? What if they were strategically placed hurdles that prevented you from progressing? Think about it. Every time you were on the edge of something wonderful, something went wrong that wasn't by chance. That was a system working against you in ways you weren't aware of. They understood just when to introduce distractions, when to send in betrayals, and when to hit you with unexpected disasters that required you to restart. And they did everything to make you doubt yourself. So you'd start to believe that maybe success wasn't for you, and you'd squander years doubting yourself rather than learning that the game was rigged from the beginning. The worst thing is that they convinced you that it was all your responsibility, that you should have worked more, that you weren't clever enough, powerful enough, or disciplined enough. However, you were never supposed to win under their system, since doing so would result in them losing control of you. But now that you see it, the entire story changes. Your setbacks were not indicative of your weakness. They were proof of their terror. They wouldn't have worked so hard to obstruct you if you weren't a legitimate danger. And now that you know you've stopped blaming yourself, you no longer feel like a failure. You reclaim what was stolen from you because they never expected you to persevere despite everything they attempted to stop you. But here you are. That's why they're terrified. Number 7, they used your pain as fuel. They benefited from your struggles, breakdowns, and suffering. It wasn't only that they weren't concerned about your discomfort. They needed it. Your weariness made their lives simpler. Your self-doubt let them stay in power. Your willingness to suffer ensured that they would never have to accept responsibility for their own acts. The hardest part was that they convinced you that everything was normal. They were drawn to your generosity, resilience, and capacity to persevere in the face of adversity. They took advantage of your loyalty, knowing you would continue to give even when you had nothing left. And they made sure you didn't comprehend what was going on, because if you did, the game would end. But now you see it. Now you see that the individuals who wounded you were not just thoughtless. They were deliberate. They drained you on purpose because they needed your brightness to conceal their own darkness. But here's something they never expected. You cut off their supplies. When you stop feeding them, they fall apart. When you stop suffering for them, they have to confront their own emptiness. And that is why they are so determined to keep you shattered. They would have nothing without your sorrow. And now they'll never hear from you again. Number 8. They needed you to think you were alone. One of their most deceptive tactics was to make you believe you were the only one going through this, that no one else could comprehend your anguish, that your problems, betrayals, and uncertainties were unique to you. But this was never true. It was a deception intended to alienate you. They understood that as long as you felt alone, you would remain silent. You would not seek aid. You would not challenge the system. You would not even consider looking for individuals who were similar to you, because in your mind, they did not exist. And that's precisely what they wanted. Because if you ever discovered that there were others like you, who had experienced the same pain, deception, and coordinated attacks, you would have recognized something deadly. It was never about you, individually. It was all about control. They could not afford for you to connect the dots. They couldn't let you realize that thousands, if not millions, of people like you, strong, clever, and kind-hearted, were purposefully torn down because they posed a threat to the system. Because the moment you recognized you weren't alone, you would have begun asking the appropriate questions. Even worse, you would have discovered your genuine tribe, the people who truly understand you, who see through the same illusions, who are just as powerful as you, but were also made to feel small. And when individuals like you get together, everything comes apart for them. That's why they try so hard to keep you unconnected. They wanted you to believe that no one else could relate or comprehend. Because as long as you felt like an outsider, you'd never look for your own kind. But now you know better. You were never alone. They only needed you to believe you were. And now that you realize the reality, the illusion is shattered. Number 9, your kindness was exploited as an attack against you. They already knew who you were. They witnessed your generosity, dedication, and great capacity to care. Instead of appreciating it, they exploited it. They knew you were the sort that forgives readily, the kind to offer individuals a second, third, and even fourth opportunity, the sort that sees the good in others, even when they just showed you unpleasant things. They exploited that against you because they knew no matter how much they wounded you, you'd always find a way to justify it. So they pushed the limits. They accepted more than they contributed. They exhausted you emotionally, psychologically, and physically. They knew that if they sprinkled in a few acts of compassion, you'd forgive the years of cruelty. Because this is who you are. You wish to believe in others. Worst of all, they taught you that your benevolence was a sign of weakness. They made you feel silly for caring too much, loving too passionately, and always believing the best in others. But the fact is that compassion was never your shortcoming. It was there since they couldn't control you without it. They would not have been able to take advantage of you if you hadn't had such a huge heart. But now you see it. You now realize that not everyone deserves to benefit from your charity, and that not everyone is worth saving. Just because you can assist someone does not mean you should. Because genuine compassion is not about being used. It's about determining who deserves your energy and who is only there to drain you. And they will no longer be able to weaponize your goodness. Number 10, the strike demonstrated your strength, not weakness. Weak individuals aren't assaulted. Those who are genuinely inconsequential are ignored, neglected, or left alone since they offer no threat. But you, they went out of their way to bring you down. They undermined your possibilities. They tell falsehoods about you. They did all in their power to keep you from getting too high. So that should tell you something. You were never weak or unimportant. You were always powerful. They knew it before you. Think about it. Why would they go to such lengths if you were actually worthless and didn't matter? Why would they waste time and energy attempting to stop you? Attacks are never random. They're always purposeful. People in positions of authority do not destroy others just for pleasure. They eliminate persons with the ability to change the game. And that was you. You possessed something they dreaded. You were a problem to them for a variety of reasons, including your brilliance, vision, resilience, and refusal to comply. The only way they could win was to persuade you that you were the issue. They made you feel little, not because you were, but because they were afraid of what you would become if you discovered your actual strength. They attempted to break you because they recognized what you didn't. You were a force beyond their control. But the game is done. You have figured it out. The attacks were never a sign of your weakness. They were proof of your potential. And now they can't stop you. Number 11. The system relies on keeping the chosen ones broken. This was never about you specifically. What occurred to you was not just poor luck or a series of unlucky occurrences. It was a component of a broader system. A system that requires individuals like you to remain broken in order to operate. The world has always been arranged in a way that favors a tiny group of individuals and allows them to maintain control. People like you cannot advance too far, because doing so causes the entire foundation of their control to disintegrate. That is why the chosen ones, visionaries, healers, and searchers of the truth are usually the first to be assaulted. If they allowed individuals like you to thrive, the world would look quite different. Corruption would not endure. Manipulation would not work. The entire system of control would fail. So what are they doing? They keep you weary. They keep you distracted. They ensure that you are continuously fighting fights that sap your energy, leaving you with little time or strength to tackle the larger system at hand. They keep you in survival mode, dealing with personal challenges, betrayals, and defeats, so you never look back and see the broader picture. And if you do eventually wake up, they throw in additional diversions, confusion, and attacks. Anything that will keep you overly occupied. Healing from the wounds they inflicted allows you to move into your full strength. Because the chosen one's full strength is their worst dread. But here's the deal. They have already lost. Because you're beginning to see it. You're breaking through the illusion. You're understanding that it was never all about you. It was about the world that they created on the backs of individuals like you. And now you may choose whether to remain broken or to burn down the entire system. Number 12. They dreaded the day you realized who you truly are. They never feared your faults. They never feared your doubts, hesitations, or darkest times. What they really feared, and what kept them awake at night, was the day you'd wake up. The day you'll know who you truly are. They knew you were unusual from the start, that you had a fire inside you, a strength that could not be easily contained. Instead of cultivating it, they tried all they could to make you forget it. Because as long as you didn't recognize your value, they could dominate you. That is why they consistently sabotaged you. This is why they made you question your instincts. That is why they created roadblocks in your path whenever you came too near to realizing your full potential. It was never about keeping you little. It was intended to keep you ignorant. Because the moment you saw yourself fully, they realized they'd lost their hold on you forever. Think about it. Why did they put so much effort into tearing you down? Why were you continuously being betrayed, sabotaged, and attacked? Weak individuals aren't treated that way. People who do not matter are neglected. They only sought to break you because they knew what would happen if you used your power. And now you can see it. Therefore, your fear is becoming a reality. You're realizing that you were never meant to remain in the background, that you were never supposed to be dominated, manipulated, or drained. You were supposed to lead, climb, and alter the game. They never feared your failure. They worried you might recall who you are. And now that you know, there's no stopping you. Number 13. Their worst nightmare. You refused to play their game for so long that they could dominate you without lifting a finger. They did not need to physically stop you. You did it for them. Every time you defended yourself, attempted to prove your value, or reacted to their provocations, lies, or efforts to break you, they drained your vitality without your knowledge. What happens if you quit playing their game? When you stop explaining yourself? When will you quit wanting their approval? That is when everything fails for them. Because the reality is, they never had true power. Their only strength came from your emotions, energy, and the emotional conflicts they pulled you into, knowing that if you were too busy protecting yourself, you wouldn't have time to move forward. That is why they caused pandemonium around you. That's why they kept you in a perpetual condition of tension, uncertainty, and bewilderment. Because being constantly on the defensive prevents you from creating, growing, and flourishing. But they lose when you ultimately refuse to participate. Stop defending yourself, stop over-explaining, and stop moving in silence. They wanted to be the center of your universe, even if it meant strife. They didn't care whether you despised them as long as they could control your emotions. However, by detaching and focusing solely on your own improvement, you are repairing your own road. They become powerless. They can't tolerate it when you stop responding, when you cease wanting their approval, when you begin life on your own terms. Because without your vitality, they're left with just their own emptiness. And it is their greatest dread. Number 14, you were never a victim. You were the awakening. They could not stop. They believed they had broken you. They believed the betrayals, attacks, and misery would destroy you. However, they just accelerated your waking. Every struggle, disappointment, and bitter lesson. It was not punishment. It was a preparation. They were not destroying you. They forced you to adapt. Because without suffering, you would not have seen the truth. You would not have recognized the system for what it was. You would not have woken up. And now you're stronger, wiser, unshakable. They didn't anticipate this. They expected you to crumble. They assumed you would give up. They assumed you'd gotten so broken that you'd never find your way back. Instead, you transformed. You transformed every ounce of anguish into insight. Each betrayal became fuel. Every loss served as a learning opportunity. Each strike demonstrated that you were never the weak one. You were never a victim. You were the force. They couldn't stop the waking. They could not stop. The proof that no matter how hard they try to ruin someone like you, they will never succeed. Because chosen ones don't remain broken. They ascend. And this is precisely what you're doing. Conclusion. The end of their delusion. This marks the beginning of your power. They tried all they could to break you. They lied to you, twisted you, made you doubt your value, and set roadblocks in your path, all to keep you little, silent, and unconscious of the power you have all along. But what they didn't realize was that every betrayal, failure, and hurt would only serve to drive your change. You were never feeble. You were never an issue. The attacks were not evidence of your failure. They were evidence of your prominence. They were afraid of your awakening because they knew once you realized the truth, you would be unable to stop yourself. And now the game's finished. The illusion has broken. You're no longer bound by their beliefs, techniques, or desperate attempts to keep you contained. You see through it all now, and nothing is more harmful to their system than someone who is fully aware of who they are. This is not simply the end of their authority over you. It's the start of something larger. You're stepping into your actual power. The strength they attempted to hide is coming to the surface. The wisdom they attempted to take from you is now yours to use. And the energy they previously drained is now being diverted to where it was always supposed to go. Your own unstoppable progress. Let them watch. Allow them to feel terror. Allow them to understand too late that not assaulting you was their worst mistake. It was discounting your potential since you were never just a victim of their system. You were the hurricane that no one could have predicted. If this message spoke to you, if you felt the truth in every word, then it's time to take action. Do not keep this revelation to yourself. Spread and share it. Let the world know that the chosen ones are awakening, and there is no turning back. So, right now, press the subscribe button and enable notifications because this is only the beginning. If this video clarified anything for you, please like it. Please leave a comment with your opinions, and most importantly, share this with someone who needs to hear it. The more we connect, the stronger we get, and the more aware we are, the less authority they possess. This is the revolution they never desired, and you are part of it. Welcome to your power. Let us rise together